Hello and welcome to our presentation on the simulation of common infill pattern under large displacement. I'm Charles Price.
And I'm Daryl Drake.
Understanding the behavior of infill as it is compressed is very useful because of its widespread use and the need to use infill patterns whenever you don't want to fill a material entirely. This is the diagram of our infill structure. We have a cube side length of 40 millimeters in each direction, and then each hexagon has a side-to-side length of 4 millimeters, and there's a wall thickness of 1 millimeter. We undertake 3 simulations, one for each material, meaning ABS plastic, ceramic, and 316L stainless steel on this hexagonal structure.
To set up our simulation, we started with a section part that represents the infill we want to examine. It notably does not have any top or bottom, as those are added as separate rigid analytical parts and then put together in the assembly. The rationale behind this is that we are only interested in examining the behavior of the infill, not the top and bottom layers. And so we can make that rigid to cause the compression that we want to look at. To do this accurately, we set a surface interaction between the base and the infill section, as well as between the top and the infill section for friction, with a friction coefficient of 1. This way that we could ensure that would be a no-slip boundary condition at those surfaces, and that we will only have to examine motion in the U2 direction. To get that motion in U2, we created 2 boundary conditions within our steps. In the second step after compression, they were created in the initial step. In the compression step is where we alter them. Now the fixed base remains fixed, and as we can see here, all motion is set to 0. However, the moving top is set to 0 with the exception of U2, in which it will move down 5 millimeters, creating the displacement that we want. The materials properties that we used for this were the basic ones of density, elastic properties, and then a plastic true stress strain curve taken from experimental results. For our ceramic material, we chose to look at a ceramic resin offered by the 3D printing company Formlabs. The manufacturing process used for this material is known as SLA printing, or stereolithography. In this process, a build plate is submerged into the resin matrix that has silica suspended in it, and a laser is used to harden that matrix in layers as the build plate moves up, creating the part. After the part has been made, it is cleaned with alcohol to remove any excess resin that may still be on it, and then the green part is required to be fired. In the firing process, the part is first taken up to the burnout temperature, which you can see here on this chart, at about 250 degrees, and held there for a number of hours to burn out and remove the polymer matrix that the silica was suspended in. Once that is done, the temperature is then drastically increased again here, as we can see, again over some number of hours, and then it is taken to hold at a sintering temperature for a few minutes, in which the silica is allowed to enter a semi-liquid state, helping it fuse together and strengthen the overall material. Now the structure that we expect from this is going to be that of silica glass. Because it is something that was suspended in the polymer matrix and which had to be burned out, a high porosity is expected, and that would be reducing the overall strength of the material. That is mitigated somewhat by the sintering process, which does cause some shrinkage and reduce the porosity, but does not eliminate the problem completely. The properties that we have obtained here that you can see were actually, however, obtained directly from the manufacturer for a properly fired part, so we did not need to make any adjustments before running our simulation. The results for our simulation on the ceramic resin material are available here in MECH stresses. We did notice a couple things for this. First, the highest stress concentration is going to be here at the base, which is to be expected as stress is likely to concentrate in that kind of an area with the sharp corner. However, we do see here where the stress does also tend to concentrate around the perimeter of the part, and we believe that this is due to a bit of a flaw in our simulation, not accounting for the fact that there would be some bowing due to those edges. As we can see here, the PEEQ actually shows that there is no equivalent strain. And the reasoning for this is because this is a ceramic material. In reality, it would have actually shattered long before it was able to get to the stresses that we see here in the MECH stress.
Our polymer material is ABS plastic, and it is made using FDM, or fused deposition modeling, otherwise known as fused filament fabrication, or FFF. In this process, a thermoplastic filament is led through a hot end that melts the material and deposits it in a prescribed pattern, creating layers. Once the part is done, no additional post-processing is necessary. This is the most common form of additive manufacturing currently. As a thermoplastic, the structure is expected to be made up of branching polymer chains. These chains will soften as the material is heated in the hot end and reharden as it cools. These properties for the plastic are from one source, whereas these properties are from another source. Are the simulation results for our ABS plastic simulations. Two views of the specimen are provided to illustrate trends not viewable easily from the other orientation. The results of the simulation are that at the end deformation, there is a 39.7 megapascal maximum MECH stress and a maximum PEEQ of 0.49. The apparent trends for this stress is that there is more stress towards the sides of the model. This is indicated by the increase of the stress as the distance is radially increased from the horizontal center of the specimen. A similar effect is illustrated in the PEEQ diagrams, though the greatest values seem to be along the external edges of the upper and lower faces of the specimen. Under an ideal condition, where the specimen exists within a semi-infinite space consisting of the same hexagonal pattern, it would be expected that the resultant stress is most similar to the interior portions of the simulated cube. Our metal chosen is 316L steel, which is made using the selective laser melting process. In this process, a high-power laser is directed in a pattern at a bed of metal powder. The powder is melted by the laser and allowed to solidify together. After a layer is completed, more powder is added and the process is repeated until the desired geometry has been completed. 316L stainless steel is an austenitic steel, so its hardness and strength cannot be controlled by heat treatment, but it can be controlled via cold working. These are the typical properties for this steel. And these are some values that are given for a paper investigating 316L steel specifically for SLM printing. These are the simulation results for 316L steel. For the metal specimen bear a striking resemblance to those exhibited by the APS simulation. In this simulation, however, there is a greater localization of stresses because the material is much stronger. PEEQ is slightly different from the previous results. Interestingly, There is less PEEQ along the areas more free to exhibit deformation in the form of bending alone. Altogether, the hexagonal infill structure exhibits a very predictable response when put under extreme strain. The boundaries of the simulated cube show greater stress concentrations because they are not supported as well as the center. The casing behavior for stresses of the infill structure is important to consider in designs utilizing additive manufacturing. So the stress distribution along the edges and the stress distribution dependent on the infill geometry as well are problems that will need to be understood well before selections made.